You've been searching for God in all the wrong places, not because God is far away, but because God is closer than your very breath. Rumi spent years seeking the divine until he made a discovery that ended his search forever. What you're looking for is what's looking. What you're seeking is what's seeking. And once you understand this, the search becomes unnecessary. His name was Jalal ad-Din Muhammad Rumi, though the world simply calls him Rumi. Born in 1207, he would become the most beloved mystical poet in history. But what most people don't know is that Rumi's greatest teaching wasn't written in his poetry. It was lived through the most devastating spiritual crisis of his life. For 37 years, Rumi was a respected Islamic scholar. He taught theology, led prayers, gave sermons. He was learned, pious, accomplished. But despite all his knowledge about God, he had never truly met God. He was like a man who had studied water all his life but had never taken a sip. Then, in 1244, everything changed. A wandering dervish named Shams of Tabriz arrived in Konya. Shams was wild, unpredictable, almost dangerous. He cared nothing for reputation or convention. He had only one interest: the direct experience of the divine. When Shams met Rumi, he asked a question that shattered Rumi's world. Who was the greater mystic? Abu Yazid al-Bistami, who said, "Glory be to me. How great is my majesty." Or Prophet Muhammad, who said, "I do not know you as you should be known." This wasn't just a theological debate. Shams was pointing to a spiritual paradox. Those who claim to have found God may not have, and those who confess their ignorance may be closest of all. Rumi's scholarly mind tried to answer, but Shams stopped him. "The answer," Shams said, "is not in your books. It's in your being." And in that moment, something broke open inside Rumi. He realized he had been looking for God as if God were an object to be found, a destination to be reached, a concept to be mastered. But what if God wasn't hiding somewhere else? What if God wasn't hiding at all? This is when Rumi discovered the secret he would spend the rest of his life trying to express. God doesn't hide from you. You hide from God. And even more radical than that, your very hiding is God, appearing as the one who hides. Think about this. When you feel distant from the divine, that very feeling of distance is a divine experience. When you long for God, that longing is God longing for God through you. When you search for meaning, that search is meaning searching for itself. Rumi put it this way: you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean, contained in a single drop. Here's where it gets even more mind-bending. Rumi realized the seeker and the sought were never separate. The lover and the beloved were always one. Every moment of seeking was actually the divine playing hide-and-seek with itself. I searched for God and found only myself. I searched for myself and found only God. This isn't just mystical poetry. This is a precise description of reality as Rumi saw it. There is no separate you looking for God. There is only God appearing as you, appearing to seek, appearing to find, appearing to lose, all for the sake of love. But why would the divine play such a game? Why would the infinite pretend to be finite? Why would the found pretend to be lost? Rumi's answer was simple: for the sake of love. Love is the bridge between you and everything, he wrote. But he didn't mean love as an emotion or even love as a relationship. He meant love as the fundamental force of existence, the very reason the one appears as many. Without otherness, there can be no love. Without separation, no reunion. Without loss, no finding. The divine creates the illusion of separation so it can experience the ecstasy of reunion. And here's the secret within the secret. The separation was always an illusion. The union was always the reality. This is why Rumi could write words that sound impossible. In your light, I learn how to love. In your beauty, how to make poems. You dance inside my chest where no one sees you, but sometimes I do. And that sight becomes this art, this music, this form. God isn't hiding in some distant heaven. God is dancing inside your chest. God is looking through your eyes, thinking your thoughts, feeling your feelings, living your life. So why don't we recognize it? Why do we feel separate? Spend our lives searching for what we already are. Rumi discovered that this forgetting isn't a mistake. It's part of the plan. Sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment, he advised, because intellectual understanding can never grasp what you truly are. The mind can only know objects, but you are not an object. You are the subject, the awareness in which all objects appear. This is why Rumi eventually stopped merely teaching and started dancing. Why he began spinning in circles until his sense of a separate self dissolved. In that whirling, the seeker disappeared, and only the sought remained. The dancer vanished, and only the dance continued. When you do things from your soul, Rumi wrote, you feel a river moving in you, a joy. That river, that joy, isn't something you experience. That is what you are. You are the river of divine consciousness, temporarily dreaming you are a separate wave. But the wave was never separate from the ocean. The ray of light was never separate from the sun. This is what Rumi meant when he said, you are the universe in ecstatic motion. The universe isn't something you live in. You are the universe. Not the personal you, but the real you. The consciousness aware of these words right now. And here's where Rumi's teaching becomes deeply practical. If you truly understand that what you are seeking is what you already are, the frantic search can end. Not because you've given up, but because you've realized there was never anywhere to go. Stop acting so small, Rumi said. You are the universe in ecstatic motion. This doesn't mean you stop growing or serving. It means you stop exhausting yourself trying to become what you already are and start living from it. When Rumi met Shams, he thought he had met his teacher, but eventually he realized Shams was showing him his own nature. Shams is not a person, Rumi later wrote. Shams is the sun of consciousness, appearing as a person to awaken the sun of consciousness in me. So when Shams disappeared, some say he was murdered by Rumi's jealous disciples. Rumi didn't fall into despair. Instead, he realized something even more profound. Shams had never been outside him. The light he thought he saw in Shams was his own light, reflected back to him. I searched for God and found only myself. I searched for myself and found only God. Perhaps the most beautiful part of Rumi's discovery is this. Once you realize God isn't hidden, you begin to see God everywhere, not as a belief, but as a living recognition. Let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray. That pull, that longing, isn't your personal desire. It's the divine calling the divine home. Love recognizing itself. Consciousness awakening to its own nature. This is why Rumi could find God in everything. In wine, in poetry, in music, in dance, in silence, in joy, in sorrow. Because once you realize that God isn't hidden somewhere else, you realize that God isn't hidden anywhere. The person hearing these words right now, that's not you looking for God. That is God appearing as you, recognizing God appearing as these words, as this breath, as this awareness. You were born with wings, Rumi reminds us. Why prefer to crawl through life? Those wings aren't something you need to earn or grow. They are what you already are. You've been flying all along, dreaming you were walking. But even the dream wasn't a mistake. The forgetting serves the remembering. The seeking serves the finding. The hiding serves the revealing. This is the greatest secret. God doesn't hide from you. God cannot hide from you. God is the very capacity by which you could recognize God. God is the awareness in which even the search for God appears. The beloved is all in all. The lover merely veils him. The beloved is all that lives. The lover, a dead thing. And when the lover realizes they were always the beloved, the search ends, not in finding, but in recognition. You don't find God. You recognize God was never lost. You don't achieve union. You realize separation was always an illusion. And in that recognition, something amazing happens. Life doesn't end. It begins. But now it's not your life. It's life, living itself through the unique expression that appears to be you. This is why Rumi spent the last 30 years of his life in celebration, not because he had found God, but because he had realized God was never missing. Dance when you're broken open. Dance when you've torn the bandage off. Dance in the middle of the fighting. Dance in your blood. Dance when you're perfectly free. Why dance? Because when you realize that what you are is pure awareness, pure love, pure being, how else can you respond but with celebration? The secret Rumi discovered is available to you right now, not as a belief, but as a recognition. The awareness hearing these words, the presence in which thoughts and feelings rise and fall, the being you are before you tell yourself who you are, that is not separate from what every mystic has ever sought. God isn't hiding in plain sight. God is plain sight. God is the seeing. God is what sees the seeing. And the most beautiful part is this. This recognition doesn't end the story. It begins it. Because now, every moment becomes an opportunity for the divine to know itself anew, to love itself freshly, to discover itself again through the unique prism that is your life. The search ends where it began, with what you are. But now you know it. Now you live it. Now you dance it. And in that dance, Rumi's secret becomes yours. What you were looking for was what was looking all along.